Breaking news on the war in Iran. 4 of the 6 U.S. service members who were killed have been identified.
March 1st, 2026, 9 in the morning. Port Shuaiba, Kuwait. Inside a makeshift operations center, a triple-wide trailer converted into an office, American soldiers were doing their jobs. Some were checking reports, some were on radio communications. One was just days away from flying home to her husband and 2 children. Then, silence turned into fire. An Iranian one-way kamikaze drone with no pilot, no warning, no mercy, slammed directly into the center of that building. The warning sirens? They never went off. The air defenses? They failed. 6 Americans never walked out. To understand what happened at Port Shuaiba, you need to understand the bigger picture, because this wasn't a random attack. This was war, a real war, one that had exploded onto the world stage just 36 hours earlier. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated military operation. Its name? Operation Epic Fury. In the first 12 hours alone, the U.S. carried out 900 strikes on Iranian targets. Israel added 200 fighter jets, hitting nearly 500 more. Iran's top military commanders were killed. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, struck dead at his compound in Tehran. The goal? Regime change, the complete dismantling of Iran's military threat. But Iran was not going to go quietly. Iran's response was immediate and ferocious. They named it Operation True Promise 4. Within hours, Iranian missiles and drones were raining down across 9 countries: Israel, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and yes, Kuwait. 150 freight ships stalled behind the Strait of Hormuz, oil tankers targeted at sea. The U.S. Embassy in Kuwait struck by a missile. The U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain hit. Dubai's skylight lit up with explosions. The Middle East was on fire. And in the middle of all of this, at a quiet civilian port in Kuwait, 6 American soldiers had no idea what was coming. Port Shuaiba, a commercial port on the coast of Kuwait, not a heavily fortified military base, a port, and that distinction would prove fatal. The soldiers were stationed inside what military sources describe as a tactical operations center, essentially a modified trailer. Think of it as a portable office. There were concrete barriers around it, the kind you'd use to stop a car bomb. Standard overseas military setup. But here's what those barriers could not stop: a drone coming from above. According to multiple military officials who spoke to CBS News and CNN, there was virtually 0 drone defense capability at this location. Requests had been made for counter-drone systems. Those requests were never fulfilled. One source told CBS News, and I want you to hear this, quote, "We basically had no drone defeat capability," end quote. There were dozens of people at that site. The Iranian drone, likely a Shahed 136, the same kamikaze drone used by Iran's proxies Hamas and Hezbollah, came in fast and low. The warning sirens that had been working all week fell silent. The drone hit the center of the building, direct impact. The building erupted in flames. Black smoke poured into the Kuwaiti sky. With the building still burning, it took hours to recover everyone. When the dust finally settled, 6 American soldiers were gone. 6 people who had kissed their families goodbye. 6 people who had made a choice to serve their country. 6 people whose names deserve to be remembered. Captain Cody A. Khork, 35 years old, from Winter Haven, Florida. Cody loved history. He studied political science in college, and from a young age, he felt a deep pull toward public service and the military. He enlisted in the National Guard back in 2009. He was barely out of his teens. By 2014, he had commissioned as a military police officer. He deployed to Saudi Arabia, to Guantanamo Bay, to Poland, and now Kuwait. His family described him as, and I'm paraphrasing their words, the life of the party, a man with an infectious spirit, a generous heart, and a deep care for every single person who served alongside him. Captain Cody Khork followed his calling in life. He died living it. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Teichitz, 42 years old, from Bellevue, Nebraska. Noah was the kind of man who walked into a room and immediately made you feel like you mattered. Fellow soldiers say he had a gift. He could read people, mentor them, and push them to be better without them even realizing it. He enlisted in the Army Reserve in 2006 as a wheeled vehicle mechanic. He earned a black belt in Taekwondo and taught martial arts. He had already served 2 prior deployments to Kuwait, In 2009 and 2019, Kuwait was familiar ground to him. He was a husband, a father. Nebraska Congressman Don Bacon, upon hearing the news, said he was heartbroken, calling Noah a man who dedicated his life to defending our country and protecting the freedoms we hold dear. Sergeant First Class Noah Tygens, a proven leader taken far too soon. Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amor, 39 years old, from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Nicole is a mother, 2 kids at home, a husband named Joey who was counting the days until she walked back through the front door. She was an avid gardener. She loved rollerblading and bicycling. On summer days, she'd make salsa with her children in the kitchen. Just 1 week before the attack, Nicole had been moved off the main base, relocated to a shipping container-style building at the port, a building with no overhead drone protection. She was days away from coming home. Her husband Joey, speaking to reporters with tears in his voice, said just 4 words that broke the internet. She was almost home. She was almost home. Nicole Amor was a Spitfire, full of life, full of love, a soldier and a mother who gave everything. Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20 years old, from West Des Moines, Iowa. 20 years old. Let that sink in for a moment. Declan enlisted in 2023. He was barely 18. His specialty was IT and cybersecurity. While deployed in Kuwait, he was simultaneously studying information systems and computer science at Drake University. He had already been recommended for a promotion to sergeant. He had already been marked as someone with a bright future ahead. His sister Kira, upon learning of his death, said, "I still don't fully think it's real. I just remember all of our conversations about what he was going to do when he came back. What he was going to do when he came back." Declan Coady was posthumously promoted from specialist to sergeant after his death. Iowa's political leaders, veterans, and Drake University students lined the streets to mourn him. A GoFundMe for his family raised over $50,000 in less than 24 hours. He was 20 years old. He had barely started, and he gave everything. 2 additional soldiers were also killed in the attack. Their names have not yet been publicly released, pending notification of their families. We honor them equally, known to their loved ones, known to God, known to us as heroes. All 6 were members of the 103rd Sustainment Command based in Des Moines, Iowa, soldiers who provided logistical and operational support, the backbone of any military mission. They weren't on the front lines in the traditional sense. They were support troops, and they died in a war that came to them. In the days after the attack, a deeply troubling picture began to emerge, one that raises serious questions about how these soldiers were protected. Multiple military officials, speaking anonymously to CBS News, revealed that the operations center at Port Shuaiba was a makeshift facility, not built to withstand the kind of aerial attack that killed these 6 soldiers. The building had concrete barriers, but those protect against ground threats, not drones coming from above. Requests were submitted for better counter-drone technology. Those requests went unanswered. The warning system that had been functional all week, silent when it mattered most. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called the strike the result of a powerful Iranian weapon that made it through both air defenses and the operations center's fortifications. He called the fallen soldiers, and these are his words, the absolute best of America. But families and soldiers are asking a harder question. Could this have been prevented? According to the Washington Post, imagery shows the facility offered little protection from overhead strikes. Military experts who reviewed the site agree. These soldiers deserved better. Their families deserved better. And as this war continues, with Defense Secretary Hegseth warning that more and larger waves are coming, the men and women still in harm's way deserve better too. As of March 5, 2026, Operation Epic Fury is still ongoing and intensifying. The U.S. has now struck over 1,700 targets inside Iran in the first 72 hours alone. Iran's drone attack rate has dropped by 73% from the opening days, according to Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane, a sign that the operation is having an effect. Secretary Hegseth said at the Pentagon, "America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy." But winning has a cost. As of this report, at least 18 more U.S. service members have been seriously wounded. The 6 killed at Port Shuaiba are the first American combat deaths of this war. They will likely not be the last. Iran has promised what it calls the complete destruction of regional military and economic infrastructure. Missiles have hit Dubai, Bahrain, Riyadh, the U.S. embassies in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. The world is watching, and 6 families in Florida, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Iowa are grieving. Captain Cody Khork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tietjens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amor, Sergeant Declan Cody, and two names we do not yet know, but whose sacrifice is no less real. They were not politicians, they were not generals, they were regular people. A history lover from Florida, a martial arts dad from Nebraska, a gardening mom from Minnesota, a college kid from Iowa with big dreams. They raised their right hands, they answered the call, and they paid the ultimate price. As veterans and military advocates reminded us this week, and I want to leave you with these words: whether you support the mission or question it, their service and their sacrifice deserve honor and respect. For veterans, the cost of war is never theoretical. It's faces, families, folded flags, and phone calls that change lives forever. Tonight, somewhere in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, two children are waiting for a mom who isn't coming home. In West Des Moines, Iowa, a sister is looking at her phone, waiting for a text that will never arrive. In Bellevue, Nebraska, a son is growing up without his father. In Winter Haven, Florida, friends are sitting in silence, remembering the man who was always the life of the party. Freedom carries a human cost. Today, we say their names. We remember them, and we pray for them.